It's Q&A day here on your favorite podcast, College Football Smothered and Covered.
You are Locked On College Football Smothered and Covered with your host, Barrett Sallee. Your one-stop shop for everything college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome into the Friday edition of the show, last show of the week before we hit the weekend. Thank you for making this your first listen every single morning. We do have a big show. It is Fan Q&A Day. That's right, giving back to you, the fan, with a lot of questions, with all the questions that you have leading into the weekend, leading into the college football playoff quarterfinals, and everything in between. Today's show brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, they're almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. I'm going to say that again. They're going to give you $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today, America's #1 sportsbook. All right. It's Fan Q&A Day. So we got a lot going on. We are going to talk about, all kinds of things, but at the end of the show, we're going to have an I told you so moment. Usually I like to make fun of myself for being stupid. I'm going to pat myself on the back at the end of the show for being smart. It's called a tease in this business. We're also going to talk about a team that actually has done a great job with an incentive to keep its players around for the bowl game. We'll talk about gambling. We'll talk about a couple of SEC teams, Georgia. But first, Texas. Fan Q&A, #1, leading us off from Rostron E. Why has Sark not won more coaching awards? It's because he gets shuffled to the back by coaches who have done more surprising things, not necessarily better things, but more surprising things. This year, Curt Cignetti, what Indiana did was unbelievable. Nobody on the planet, not even Indiana fans, thought that Indiana would be in the college football playoff, even if it was 30 teams. I don't think anybody expected that in Cignetti's first year with the Hoosiers. Rhett Lashley at SMU. I told you they were a dark horse team before the season, but not many people thought that they could go undefeated in the ACC and make the college football playoff. That was a bit of a pipe dream. Last year, Kalen DeBoer at Washington. Not many people expected Washington to be in the 4-team playoff, but they were. Curt Cignetti at James Madison. So it's not that Sark is being disrespected. It's that he has the weight of Texas upon him. And that's a good thing. It's not a surprise if Texas wins. Even last year, when they made the college football playoff and dang near won a semifinal. I mean, even if Texas was viewed as a fraud, well, let's just say they were by a lot of people going into the season. A lot of people thought that. But if they were a fraud, they still should have been back, right? The joke Texas is back means that at some point they were there. And so getting there is not a surprise. It's the expectation. It's a relief, but it's not viewed as an unbelievable coaching performance. Maybe it should be. And, in my mind, it is. But if you're at Texas, no matter what, same thing with Alabama and Saban. If you're at these places, you're expected to do that. Whereas a lot of these coaching awards and a lot of the voters for these coaching awards like to give it to cute little coaches with cute little stories, right? Cignetti this year at Indiana, Rhett Lashley at SMU, Cignetti last year at James Madison, Kalen DeBoer at Washington. Those are the things that resonate when a lot of voters are going to fill them out on a Survey Monkey website. And that is how they do this, incidentally. For the coaches awards that I vote for, I try to avoid that. I try to put things in perspective and think about, hey, you know, this coach X with this loaded roster overcame certain things or led his team to the promised land or place they haven't been to in a while. And they deserve credit for that. I voted for Saban for a lot of awards, even when there were cute little stories elsewhere, because, I mean, hell, building the roster is part of what you do as a coach. It's not necessarily only what you do on the field. It's how you get there when you're not on the field. That's how I kind of look at it, but still part of the joy of the season, the sport, is that you do have coaches rise up the ranks and become household names. Or if you're Kalen DeBoer, become the Alabama head coach. So it's not, I don't necessarily think it's a slight against Sark. I think it's just the difference that people have in terms of their mindset when voting, right? Whether it's the Eddie Robinson or the Home Depot Award or the Dodd Trophy, any of those, right? They don't give you a set criteria. Well, Dodd Trophy does because it kind of has academics involved. But generally speaking, when it comes to these awards, they don't necessarily give you set in stone, like, hey, you have to vote for a coach that has 10 wins and has a roster that is below 20 in the recruiting rank. Like, they don't do that. It's up to the beholder. That doesn't mean Sark has not been a fantastic coach. It really doesn't. All right, next up. This is from the YouTube machine, Brotherhood Gaming 13. I mean, these questions are on YouTube, but if you're audio only, I'm going to read them anyway. I agree with you that Georgia is better off throwing a fresh face into the fray with Stockton as long as he can avoid stupid mistakes, but would 1000% be better off if they drop Bobo again. And for those who aren't deep into the weeds of SEC football, Bobo is Mike Bobo, former Georgia quarterback. He was the offensive coordinator under Mark Richt for a very long time. He went to Colorado State, was the head coach there, was at Auburn as an OC, was at South Carolina as an OC, and now is back at Georgia for the last couple of seasons as OC after he replaced Todd Monken. There is blame that can be put on Mike Bobo's shoulders, right? This offense, it's somewhat inexcusable with how it's operated. It's still effective, but it should not be this bad or this average, I guess is what you should say, is this average. With that said, Bobo's been a lightning rod as an assistant at Georgia for a decade, even more than a decade, because, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but he was the offensive coordinator under Richt long before Richt got fired. So he does get a dose of criticism, but for reasons that are either fair or not fair. Better off without Bobo. You're kind of in that spot. Okay, who would be better? Would Todd Monken be better? Yeah, he's busy with Lamar Jackson, right? The biggest thing, and I think it's more of a Kirby issue than it is a Mike Bobo issue. Kirby didn't get any wide receivers. He just didn't get any to replace Ladd McConkey. He hasn't really developed Oscar Delp. I mean, that was he is replacing Brock Bowers. So I think there's no good way to do this. You have to try to make it work, and because you're not going to replace a guy like Brock Bowers. You thought Arian Smith would do it, but he can't catch the football. Now, you can say that's Mike Bobo's fault. I would say it's more position coach / head coach. And here's why. Position coach is there to teach you fundamentals. Head coach is there to get stars on roster. Those two things are much more important than Mike Bobo calling plays in terms of drops by any receiver, right? So they tried. The biggest issue for Georgia is that they don't have that stud receiver. That's more of, that's a Mike Bobo problem to an extent, but he's more working around issues as opposed to trying to fix the issues with his specific role. Now, the rushing attack, I think, can be put a little bit more on Bobo because run the dang ball, Bobo, has been a thing at Georgia for a very long time. And at some point, I think for Bobo, the biggest thing for Georgia this year and why Carson Beck has sort of become a liability and why I put that video out earlier this week about how they might be better off with Gunnar Stockton. And that was what that question was in reference to. Bobo calling plays to try to get Carson Beck to throw himself out of funks. That's on him. Because at some point, Mike Bobo has to recognize, hey, look, the receivers aren't there. The quarterback's a head case. Instead of trying to fix it by letting him throw himself out of a slump, it might just be easier to run the ball, even if Trevor Etienne's not there or hurt, even if the Robinsons are not there, even if you have to move Cash Jones back to running back for a little while, even if you have to give Nate Frazier, the true freshman, some run, which is something they should have done a lot more of this year. So part of it is Bobo, but I think a lot of it is just the position coaches and the lack of development on that end. Bobo's calling plays. He's not out there running routes, getting these guys to run routes, working them on fundamentals throughout the course of fall camp, spring practice, during the season. So he's a lightning rod. Get it. But it's not all on him. Comment from Primetime Dogs. Go Dogs. We'll see if they can beat Notre Dame. Picks coming next week. I do like Notre Dame a lot. They're not a pushover. They're a pretty good team. Can Georgia beat them? Pay attention to the show next week, and you will find out. Take a break. Dollar bills, y'all. It's college football smothered and covered. We are powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show brought to you by our good friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me, and I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even know I realized I was paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscription, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using all of the app's premium features. For me, I had way too many streaming services I didn't even use a lot of them. So Rocket Money was there. Help me cancel them. Help me consolidate into the ones that I actually use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Dollar bills, y'all. Next question comes from Frank Hammond. How do the billions of dollars being spent on gambling sites affect college sports? Now, we've had certain incidents, a couple incidents of coaches getting into trouble, players getting into trouble, specifically in the state of Iowa, shaving points, all that stuff. Look, it's very hard to rig games in college football. You can rig props. And when I was at CBS before I left, Dennis Dodd had a fantastic story that we had a lot of fun with. He talked to a guy who fixed games, a guy who literally was fixing games. And obviously basketball's a lot easier. We've seen blue chips. Everybody's seen blue chips with Tony. But Football, you don't really fix games, you fix prop bets. So if a running back is under his 64.5-yard total and more money's bet on the under, okay, he's not going to make a cut. He's going to get stopped for a 5-yard loss and whatever. He might fumble if the team is on the verge of covering and more money's on the over, but he doesn't really control that because the other team doesn't, all that stuff. Now, in basketball, it's a lot easier. So to me, the money that is in college sports gambling from a player side really hasn't affected it. In fact, I think the sports books have basically de facto turned into the de facto police. Now, how has it affected it? In other ways, it's brought more money into the sport because of the attention that is paid, right? A lot of people paid attention to college. Pros didn't, it doesn't matter. Pro sports gamblers have always paid attention to college sports. The retail gamblers have joined in on the action, right? Where, sometimes they would only be, NFL gamblers or bet on NBA games or whatever. There's more attention from a casual fan on college football. So there is more attention and more money from the retail gambler in games. But it really hasn't affected it all that much. To me, I think it's actually a good thing because it has brought a de facto police group into the sport more than anything else. And as far as players shaving points in football, I mean, it happens, but it's a lot smarter if you're the one fixing games to do it in other sports, specifically in basketball. And there might be something about that you'll hear about in the coming days, weeks, months about basketball. It's called a tease. Not to say I have a lot to do with that, but there is stuff that might be out there. All right. Next question from Matthew Sun. Why isn't there a Dr. Pepper football throw during the lower tier bowls? Ratings would be insane. Look, ratings are insane for bowl games anyway. I love bowl games. We talked about that yesterday in the show. We will talk about that in this show as well. The Dr. Pepper challenge. I don't hate people that do the chest toss, the basketball pass. I don't hate it. That's just being smart. That's gaming the system. It's not illegal. So you go ahead and do it. I think that it's the people, and I can't remember what it was. It might have been the game I was at, the SEC championship game, where one dude decided to throw. He said, screw it, I'm going to decide to throw. Good for him. I love it. Going against the grain, making the challenge bigger than others, and I'm with it. I would move that person. I'd move the chest pass person back 5 yards. I think that would be, you can decide. Hey, look, I'm going to do it the old school way or the new school way. I would love more halftime shows during lower tier bowl games, middle tier bowl games. Remember, it was LSU Arkansas. No, it was the Liberty Bowl. This is probably 12, 13 years ago. They had Eddie Money do a halftime show in Memphis. It was awesome. I mean, awesome. I'd be fine with that. Get some washed up musical acts, and they have local ties, and let's go. Let's do it. Celebration Bowl, you can have a local artist here in Atlanta. I mean, there's plenty of acts in Texas that I'm sure would love it. Can you imagine what the Music City Bowl would be like? Oh my goodness. I'd love that. I'd love more halftime entertainment to begin with. The chest pass for Dr. Pepper certainly is one of them. I don't mind it at all. I would tweak it a little bit. Dr. Pepper spends a lot of money. Do it. I would expand upon that, and have more actual halftime content. But ESPN has to pump its studio shows. It'll never happen. Should happen, but it won't. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Comments. Primetime dog. Kirby needs to put Bobo on a leash. Bobo tries to live his career through these QBs. He got Gunner the interception and got Beck injured on a throwaway play. I don't necessarily mind the play which Beck got hurt at the end of the first half. You're at midfield, heave it up there, see what happens. But I don't know what what that was at the end of regulation with Gunner. We'll take a break. When we come back, talk a little bit more about money and one thing that a very high-profile coach is doing to keep his players around. Plus, I'm going to pat myself on the back. You'll find out why it's college football smothered and covered. Of course, we are powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. You know we love FanDuel here. FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook. Okay, the NFL playoffs are almost here. Bowl season is here as well. It's not too late to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel, they're going to give you $250 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right. You win your first $5 bet, they give you $250. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up the dub. I love betting on which players score a touchdown first, live betting all over the place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can make a bet. It's all there, live play-by-play stats, everything where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, two things before we wrap up. One, with Deion Sanders, he said this week during one of his press conferences that they built the biggest insurance policy in history for Shedeur. He didn't mention my name, Shedeur and Travis, and the rest of this team too. And that was an incentive to stay for the bowl game. Look, I don't care how big the insurance policy is. If you're a first-round pick, you go. I think Shedeur and Travis's decision to stick around for the bowl game is more because they want to finish things. Because honestly, if they get hurt and they get paid out, $30-40 million, which will never happen in a college football insurance policy, it still pales in comparison to what they will actually get in the NFL level. It's more about Deion selling himself to recruits and say, hey, look, we're going to take care of you every way possible from a financial standpoint if you come here. So do not worry about anything that, as far as the future of career, we got you. That's all this was, which is fine. It's great. But don't put it out there to say, if you think that it's going to make a huge difference in their decisions, it's not. Now, for the younger players, the players that have 2 years in college before being draft eligible, yeah, it matters for sure. But the number, even though it's not disclosed, and Rick George said they weren't going to disclose it, nor should they, whatever. It's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. What is a big deal is something we talked about yesterday on the show. Bam! Bowl games yesterday compared to the NFL. I said yesterday there's no such thing as too many bowl games. We got a 6 overtime classic in the game above bowl, Toledo winning by 2. We had a massive comeback, the biggest comeback in Kansas State Bowl history, and the Rate Bowl winning 44-41 over Rutgers. And we had Arkansas State, a 38-31 win over Bowling Green. The NFL Thursday night game, womp womp. The Seahawks win 6-3 over the Bears. I'm just saying, if you want pure entertainment value, I think you know where that is. Even you defensive folks that love a defensive contest, you didn't get one with the Seahawks and Bears. You got flat out awful bad football. That's all that was. It was terrible football. So, yeah, it meant something in terms of the playoffs for the NFL. Those 3 college football bowl games didn't mean anything for the postseason, but clearly it meant a lot for those teams. Toledo celebrated the win 3 times. The third one was actually the charm. They got into a pregame fight with Pitt before the game. They manufacture hate. That's totally fine with me. But it goes to show you how much they enjoy these games, how much Kansas State enjoyed these games. That was awesome. How much they mean to everybody. Pitt's players heads down, crying, leaving the stadium at Ford Field. They enjoy playing football. That's all it is. And yesterday's bowl games show just how much they do. On a day that yesterday when I made a big stand on one of my really passionate arguments about bowl games. Man, they delivered. And the NFL, it 100% did not. What an awful, awful game that was. That'll do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered, powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. Hey, for your second listen, go check out Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football. He does a great job over there. As for here, Subtext Group, you can check on that link below. You can follow me on all of the social media platforms at Barrett Salee, 2 R's, 2 T's, 2 L's, and 2 E's. Thank you to our sponsors, FanDuel and Rocket Money today. Thank you for watching and listening this week. If breaking news comes this weekend, we'll pop in for that. If not, we'll talk to you Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you then.